Hey, Allison Verhalen here with AV Writing Services, and today I am going to give you the 5 big things that you need to know in order to write compelling content for blog posts for attorneys, right? A lot of people think about blog posts for lawyers as being very bland and boring and stuff that no one actually wants to read. And that's not how I approach my blog posts. I have several attorneys I've written for that I continue to write for. So my blog posts are not boring. My very first paid gig as a content marketer was writing blog posts for a law firm. Prior to hiring me, this person had been writing their own blog posts, and I went through and tried to read what this person had already written for their blog, and it was terrible. It jumped from one subject to another with no segue, no concept of what those two things had to do with each other or how they got from point A to point B. It was very difficult to read, and I got through it because I was getting paid to get through it. But if I had been a prospect, I would not have even finished reading that blog post. I would have clicked away and said, okay, thanks, I'm gonna get what I need somewhere else because this is not helping me. So I took over writing blog posts for this law firm because I knew I could do better than that. And after about 6 months, I would write 2 to 4 blog posts per month for them. And after 6 months, I was told that the blog posts I was writing had brought in about $75,000 worth of business for this particular law firm, which is way more than they paid me to write those blog posts. So that ROI was significant that they brought in on those blog posts. So what was I doing differently? We're gonna break it down for you. Number 1 is avoid the jargon. Don't use Latin, don't use the industry specific terms, don't use big words in any of your content because no one cares. You're just gonna confuse them, they're not gonna know what you're talking about, and they're gonna leave and go find someone who will explain things to them in a way that they can understand. So that's what you need to be doing, right? So newspapers, for example, the average piece of advice for newspapers is to write at a 6th grade level, and the same goes for your blog posts, right? They should be very easy to understand, very easy for everyone to read, because you're not trying to attract other attorneys, you're trying to attract people who, depending on your area of expertise, not only do they not go to law school, they might not have gone to college, they might not have even finished high school. And even if they did, maybe they majored in something like math, and language was never their strong suit. So write it in simple terms that are easy to read. Your content should be very easy to read. If you ever make the person work to get through your content, they're gonna leave because they're not here to work. They're here to figure out what they need, get answers to their questions, and possibly hire you. And if you just confuse them and try to show off how smart you are by making them feel dumb, that's not going to impress them. That's not going to inspire confidence. That's just going to make them feel stupid, and nobody likes that. So they're going to go find someone who can explain things to them on their level. So that's what your content needs to do. Focus on creating content that meets them at their level, meets them where they are. So next up, so you've got your super easy to read content. Next up is you want to focus on things that they care about, right? So what interests them. So maybe there's a new law that was just written about that impacts your particular area of the law. Maybe the Supreme Court recently reached a decision that changed all of the precedent around this particular law or a kind of lawsuit that you focus on. So rather than focusing on the language of the law or how the law got passed or who is behind the law, your audience doesn't care about that. They want to know how it impacts them, right? So that's what they're going to be searching for, and we'll get to SEO in a little bit, but it's all tied together, right? There's the topics, and there's the SEO, and there's the keywords, and they all need to work together. So write about what your audience cares about. Write about what they're searching for. If they're searching for example, in Illinois, not too long ago, this was a few years ago actually, they completely got rid of custody, right? It's parenting time. That's how it's referred to. No one parent has all of the custody, or they're splitting it. It's just a completely different way of thinking about who gets to spend time with the kids when parents divorce, right? So write about that. Write about what that means for your customer. Write about what that means if they're getting divorced, if they're thinking about getting divorced. How does that impact the negotiations if there are kids involved? that's what they're going to be searching for, and that's what you really need to be focusing on. Don't focus on the letter of the law because they don't care. It's gonna, at best, it'll bore them, and at worst, it'll confuse them. And like I said, when they're confused, they'll just go find someone who can explain it to them in terms they understand. So focus on what it means to them. And similar to that is point number 3, focus on the story. So my compelling content that I write for my attorneys, that I write blog posts for, it always focuses on a story because there's always a story involved, right? Most of the time I advise writing blog posts that have that are very action oriented, right? You've got, for example, this video right here. It's got the 5 tips. I'm telling you how to do this for yourself. So you don't have to hire me. But when you figure out you don't have the time or the inclination to do it for yourself, that's when you reach out and hire me. Now for attorneys, it's a little bit more complicated because most of the time you are better off just hiring someone to do it for you, right? You don't want to miss anything. You have to make sure that all your I's are dotted and all your T's are crossed when it comes to the law, right? Because we know how lawyers love their loopholes, and they will take advantage of it if you leave anything that you need to include in your contracts, in your legal law, in whatever it is that you're doing to try and protect yourself, or if you're trying to sue someone else. Don't ever sue someone else without representation, right? So the action-oriented blog posts are a little bit harder for attorneys. They're still doable. You still can absolutely write about, like, these are the 3 ways to protect yourself from such and such, or this is what you need to know about this law. These are the papers you need to get in order. You can even point them to the papers that they need. This is what you need to get your will in order, for example. This is where you can find contracts online, so you can have your own contracts, right? But then you can always finish it with, you should really reach out to an attorney and have someone at least look it over for you, just to make sure that there are no gaps in your legal protections, right? So what I do for a lot of my blog posts for attorneys is less of the action-oriented stuff, less of the tips, and more just a story. I'll write about a lot of existing lawsuits that have to do with the specific area of law that my clients cover, and I'll write about that lawsuit, and I'll write it as a story, right? There's a story behind everything. It's not just, it's not just all legal language and boring stuff. These are people's lives. It's their livelihoods. If you're talking about employment law or business law, this is how people make their money, how they support themselves, and that is a huge deal. When you come to slander or defamation, that is their reputation, which is often tied into how they make their money and their ability to earn an income. So it's not boring. It's tied to the most important aspects of our lives. So focus on that. Tell your clients, tell your target audience how this impacts them. What does this have to do with them? What are the consequences if they don't get their protections in order, if they don't get their contract or whatever it is that they need? What does that potentially open them up to? So focus on that. And if you're a defense attorney and maybe you find some lawsuits that are in the same area that you cover, and focus on the defendant in that particular case and tell them how this lawsuit impacted them, and then explain how your audience can protect themselves from getting sued. And if you're a plaintiff's attorney, maybe you want to focus on the plaintiff in that particular case and explain, this is how this person allegedly was taken advantage of, and these are the things you can put in place to make sure that this doesn't happen to you, so that you don't have to sue someone. So talk about that. Talk about how the law protects them, or what are the gaps in the law that might leave them vulnerable, and how can they take that into account when they're getting their stuff set up. So write about what interests them, focus on the story, and then have a compelling call to action, right? So once you've convinced them that this is really important, and the risks are very high if they don't do the things they need to do to get their stuff in order, that's when you need to say, by the way, if you need help, if you need a professional attorney, and always emphasize the fact that yes, they need a professional attorney to get these things in order for them. You should never try to do your own legal stuff unless you're an attorney, because you're gonna leave stuff out. You're gonna miss some things, and that's going to leave you vulnerable, and nobody wants that. So have that call to action that makes it clear to them that they need to hire you, and then make it clear how they can hire you. Also, again, keep in mind that a lot of the time when people are searching for information that they tend to find on blog posts, maybe they're not ready to buy yet. Attorneys in particular, because they're not cheap, they tend to have very high cost leads, right? People are going to go through a lot of their content before they feel comfortable hiring you. So maybe you want to lead them to, maybe you want to write a whole blog series on a particular topic. So maybe the end of a blog post, instead of going straight for the call to action to sell to them, maybe you want to encourage them to read the next post in that series, or again, follow you on social media, or sign up for your newsletter, so that you can keep pushing that great content in front of them, so that when they do need you, you will be at the top of their mind for them. Finally, like I said, SEO. You got to get your keywords in order. You have to find out how long is the content, not only that Google wants, but that your customers want. Are they going to get through 1,000, 2,000 words of content? Maybe, or maybe they'll just skim it. And if they want the shorter content, write the shorter content. If you do have the longer, really in-depth stuff, make it skimmable. I know that's hard with legal stuff, but try to make it easy for them to jump to the sections that just interest them. This is just what I want to know about right here, right now. I don't care about all this other stuff. I want to know about this right here. So make it easy for them to find it and to get there. Get all your keywords in order, know what they're searching for. Use that keyword research not only to come up with topics, but also to know what keywords you should be using throughout your content, throughout the entire blog post and on your website and everywhere. And know the search intent as well, right? And I've talked about this before. There's your blog posts and there's your landing pages. If someone is searching for a business attorney in their area, you're gonna wanna put that kind of keyword on your sales page, on your landing page. If they're looking for what do I do if my dog bit me, that's going to be a blog post. That's what they're looking for right there. They're not necessarily looking to hire right now, but they might be. Right now they're just looking for information. So you're going to put that information on a blog post, and you're going to get all those juicy keywords in there on that blog post, so that when they find you, you are directing them to the content that they need at that moment. So that's it. Those are the 5 things that you need to know to write juicy blog posts for a law firm that actually succeed in attracting, engaging, and converting leads online. That's it. If you have any other questions, you can find us at avwritingservices.com. If you want to ask me anything directly, you can reach me at info@avwritingservices.com. Otherwise, have a great week and happy marketing.